But don't you consider that a waste of resources having to go through all of that and then throw it out when you have other things you could look at? For instance, this bill talks about the fact that the commission will have to register these non-governmental organizations, but you have the CAC that's registering all these non-governmental organizations as it stands. Then there are other arms of government that are regulating and checking out their finances and records as well, like the FIRS and all of that. Don't you think there are more things that can be looked at? I mean, you talk to yourselves as colleagues. There are other things that can be looked at, that bills should be brought up that would ease the living conditions of Nigerians. Don't you think that's even more important?
I think so. I think that there are a lot of bills that we need to bring up, but I assure you that there are so many bills that we are considering. This is just one out of 1,000 bills that we are considering. You know, you are talking about it today because of the media, you know, hype about it. It's not as if it's the only bill that we have there. We have so many bills. Okay. I have about four bills from my own office alone that are in the process as we speak now. But
you do know that the non-governmental organizations, their argument, okay, I told you that there are a lot of arguments. There are those who argue that the non-governmental organizations are having more impact on many lives than government is having. So if the NGOs are having more impact on many lives than the government is having, they are concerned that you're trying to stop that which is making their lives easier. But you say there are other bills that are there that need to be looked at. So why focus on this? Why not pick up the other bills and focus on them?
No, I think you are the one focusing on these. We are focusing on the range of bills in the House. Yeah, you are not paying attention to the rest.
Okay, what are the other ones that we should pay attention to? When you look at what we have there,
you know that this... Well, I have a bill on the establishment of a School of Mine and Geological Studies, for instance. I have a bill on minimum wage, you know, and wage boards, and a whole lot of other bills. And a lot of people have bills in health-related, education-related issues, you know, infrastructure, a lot of infrastructure-related bills, and so on and so forth. We have deficit of infrastructure, and people have come up with a lot of bills that are being considered. Unfortunately, people are not paying attention to that. But there's so much attention about this one, probably because, you know, it concerns civil society organizations. I am sure that if I was still operating as president of NUPENC and this comes up, I will equally raise issues about it. Okay. But I will not condemn outrightly and say, don't talk about it at all.
The bill on minimum wage, at what stage is it?
The same public hearing.
At public hearing, but nobody...
The same level with this, yeah.
But nobody, you say nobody's paying attention to it. Is it not possible that you're not putting...
You are not paying attention to it yet.
I am not paying attention to it yet. Okay, I like that part of the yet. But this issue of the non-governmental organization, you talked about the fact that in some other climes they are being regulated. Do you also know that in some other climes, government pays a fraction or a certain percentage of funds to these non-governmental organizations to help them function?
I think Nigerian government should do that. I think Nigerian government should do that. This is the opportunity for us to insist that Nigerian government should do what others are doing.
But it is not in your bill.
I didn't say that.
It is not part of the bill proposed.
That is why it's not my bill, it's a House bill, please. You know, the committee's work is to present this to the public, including you, to talk about it and say, okay, fine. You're thinking of how to harmonize the activities and bring whatever. Why don't you also make provision for that? But if you look at some of the provisions that we are talking about, which says, for instance, that any organization that is not registered will not have access to the privileges provided. What are those privileges? We need to open that up and say, what privileges are you providing for CSOs and NGOs? What support can you give to them? And then if you are providing support, you can then say that the one that is not registered will not get those supports because you can't trace them because they are not registered. But you cannot say, I'm not thinking that anybody is saying that, you know, a group of people cannot come together and begin to operate except they get registered. But if you must have access, you know, to some benefits, then you have to register.
I'm just curious.
I belong to associations that are not registered.
I'm just curious. Why do you think it was important to put state of origin on that paper? Why do people have to...
It's not my document.
I'm just wondering.
Yes, of course. Me too. You know, it's not my document, but sincerely, that was the requirement of the sponsor of that program. Every other person wrote, you know. every other person wrote. Yeah.
I'm just a little curious because nowadays people are beginning to look more about, look more to identifying as Nigerians, and they don't think that it should matter.
Let's not deceive ourselves. Nigerians are patriotic to their ethnic cleavages more than, I don't know who thinks about Nigeria more than the ethnic group. From the conversation going on in this country, except we don't want to be honest about it. So the issue of state shouldn't be a problem to anybody. It shouldn't be a problem. That's what I think.
Is that something that we should encourage?
But I don't think that we should insist on it, when we're doing registration and all that. But where it is, provided for, I don't think we should fight that. I don't think we should fight. I'm from Edo State. There's no doubt about that. That does not, change my identity as a Nigerian. You have to come from a certain village, from a certain family, before in a certain local government and a state before, you call yourself a Nigerian. That is the truth of it.
Just a little
so
curious
it doesn't make any difference.
As to what the requirements were. But how do you think this is going to proceed now that it's already at public hearing stage and the outcry that has greeted it?
Well, I think that the process has to continue, and I encourage civil society interest groups to articulate their position very properly and come and present on that day. If they see any attempt to ignore their contribution or to deprive people from making contribution, then this whole, hue and cry can start. But at this point, I don't think that it is called for. I don't think it is called for.
Well, we have to thank you most kindly for coming on Sunrise Daily. Honorable Pt.3 is Chairman, House Committee on CSOs and Development Partners.